Welcome back, everybody. Thursday, September 21st. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. Talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Let's get TikTok rolling on my iPad, and then we shall chat. Introduce yourselves, as always, where you are. Choop, choop, TikTok reverse. Boom. That was quick today. Oh, and TikTok says unstable connection. Don't you go there, TikTok. My connection is not lost. There we go. My connection's good here in DC. I know it is. Hello, TikTokers. Don't lie to me, TikTok. All right. Hey, guys. Thank you, Big Hawk. Hey, guys. How we doing today? Another lot of news day. Lots of news. So we will talk about all of it. How are we doing? How's everybody? Oh, thank you, Shane. Good. I am wearing the map. I'm wearing the map and doing the map. I'm going to be doing both today. I've got the map and the map just for fun. Oops. All right. Anyway. Oh, so how we guys map squared exactly. Thank you, Succeed, for that. Yeah, so Zelensky's in Washington today, so we've got a good deal of news about that. Thank you, Marie. We've got some good counteroffensive news today, which is excellent. So that's good. Hey, Sally in the UK. Marcy, thank you for the gift. Hey, Sophie. Putin is not winning. If Putin were winning, I know we've got a little troll here today already, Russian trolls. So here's the problem. If Putin were winning, he wouldn't be taking a year and a half to win. Putin said the war was going to take 3 days. They even brought, interesting fact here, the Russians brought their uniforms with. They brought their ceremonial uniforms with in order to have a big celebration when they got to Kyiv, because the Russians figured they were going to win in literally 3 days. What happened? We are now 19 months. We're over a year and a half into this war. Actually, I've got the number of days. Hang on. How many days? 575 days into Vladimir Putin's 3-day war. If Putin were winning this war, the war would have been over 572 days ago. Thank you, Suzanne. This is not great for Russia. Anyway, you know that. You guys know that. I always get a chuckle out of the trolls when they do that, though, because it's like, guys, no one believes you. I mean, literally, my favorite from the Russians is when they say, don't make us angry or then we're really going to start fighting. And you're like, you're 575 days into a war. Thank you, M. Fuller and Carol. And you haven't started fighting yet? Like, there's actually more you could do to win, but you just didn't want to. Thank you. I mean, I kind of love that argument. Imagine like in a democracy making that argument, I just don't feel like doing everything we need to do. Thank you, Joe. Anyway, it makes me laugh. All right, guys, let me do my introduction and we'll get rolling here. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. Thank you, Lupo. Grazie. This is my nightly show I do from Ukraine. Notice my lip is getting even worse. I burned my lip 2 days ago eating pizza, and it's just getting worse now, and it's driving me bonkers. Anyway, what do you do? Hang on a second, guys. Hang on a second. I'm looking here. One quick sec, guys. Give me a quick second here. A technical issue briefly. But I will just tell you, so this is while I'm looking at the technical issue, this is my show that I do every day, Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, US. We basically cover the, hang on a sec here. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I had to give an angel their wings here. Oh, come on, Angel. Come on, Angel. There we go. Oops. There we go. Okay. Sorry. It took me a second here to give the angel their wings. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate the gift there. Okay. Angel got their wings. Okay. All gone. All gone, Angel. Actually, I got to see. I'd gotten this at the suggestion of Nia Vardalos, who's the Greek actress, a Greek-American actress. Actually, Greek-American. I almost stole her from you Canadians. Greek-Canadian actress. But she had one of these on Instagram, and I asked her where she got it. And I got it too. They're fabulous, but I like I don't know why I'm enjoying my Greek donkey or whatever he is today. All right, guys. Anyway, yes. So I burnt my lip the other day. So excuse the lip. It's just getting worse. But what do you do? This will teach me to eat pizza and burn myself. Anyway, so let's get rolling here. Saturday, we have our coffee talk, as I call it for the TikTokers. Saturday mornings, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, US. I will be coming to you guys live on TikTok and Discord, and that will be for the paid subscribers. That will be for all the folks who are paying monthly as my thank you to you all. Butter helps. Okay, I will try that, Cal. As my thank you to you guys for being my monthly subscribers. Vlad usually beams in from Ukraine, so you can join us there too. But thank you all. Otherwise, let's get rolling here. Please do keep the gifts coming. As I always say, it helps me, basically helps me afford to keep doing this. So please keep the TikTok gifts and everybody else YouTube coming as well. Thank you, Ellie and Yero and Ellie again. All right, guys. So, Russia launched a huge attack last night on at least 6 Ukrainian cities, killing at least 2 people, starting fires and wounding at least 21. Russia is now officially going after Ukraine's electrical infrastructure again in preparation for the winter. You recall that last winter, the Russians basically were trying to freeze the Ukrainians to death. And they're doing it again. They're trying to blow up all the transformers, anything they can going with electricity in Ukraine to try to destroy it. Interesting though, however, now, let me read you this. This is very interesting. At least 5,000 homes have been left without power in the Russian city of Tula, according to the state media outlet RIA. It noted that an emergency power outage had occurred in one of the districts of the city, but did not offer a cause. The pro-Kremlin outlet Shot said an explosion had preceded the outage at around 10 p.m. local time. Now, it is possible Ukraine did this. It's possible Ukraine didn't do it. Thank you, Vicky. What is interesting is Russia, for the first time in 6 months, attacks Ukraine's power infrastructure. Okay, that's the first thing. Trying to knock out their power for the winter. Second thing, sorry, I wasn't sure if you're talking to each other or me about the Albanian, because a wing of my family is pretty much Albanian Greek, or we're right on the border with Albania, but we're out of Anitis, which are Greek, Albanian, you name it. So I wasn't sure if you're talking to me, but if you are, that's kind of interesting. Thank you for the gift there. Let me see real quick. Oh yeah. So what's interesting here is Zelensky had said several days ago, thank you, Vicky and Big John. He had said actually quite recently it was Sunday night. It was Sunday night. Oh, Ellie. Hey, Ellie. It was Sunday night on 60 Minutes, the American news show, that Zelensky said, if the Russians go after Ukraine's electrical infrastructure, we have the right to go after yours as well. Now, when I heard that, I thought it was very interesting. Because to me, it sounded like Zelensky was making a threat. I mean, that's not a sounded like. What was interesting to me is it struck me as a credible threat. It struck me as Zelensky was actually saying, we're going to come after you if you come after us. It is therefore interesting that, and again, it could be a coincidence, but the very first time, thank you, Vicky, the very first time the Russians go after the Ukrainian electrical infrastructure in 6 months since last winter, okay, they finally, right immediately afterwards, some explosion happens and takes out power in a Russian city. I just think it's interesting, okay? Ukraine says its forces struck a Russian airbase in Crimea overnight and did serious damage. Zelensky is in Washington today. As you guys know, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Actually, we'll talk about it right now. He went to Congress, met with Republicans, met with Democrats separately. Thank you, Angela. He met with all the senators were invited in one meeting. In the House, he did not meet all the House members. They were not all invited because there's frankly a lot of crazies there. And I think the concern was that some of them might actually yell at him, which is what they would do. You know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, we've got some, again, I hesitate to say far right because the Trump phenomenon has sort of messed up typical party labels in this country, not just in that Republicans are embracing a lot of things Republicans traditionally don't embrace, like being weak on defense, things like that. But you've also got actual conservative Republicans. A lot of them support Ukraine because conservative Republicans, typically, probably in your countries as well, the conservatives tended to be tougher on defense and certainly tougher on Russia. They understood what a serious threat Russia posed, right? So I hate to call them conservatives are far right, because that's not really it. Maybe you want to call it the MAGA right in the House, but there's a lot of them there. And basically, thank you, Joe. I think the Republican leader in the House, Kevin McCarthy, was probably very smart in thinking that some of these people would just go crazy and probably yell at Zelensky. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene would just scream at Zelensky in a meeting. So it wasn't worth bringing her. In any case, Kyrgyzstan, where is that, Andre? Kyrgyzstan? I don't even know of that. Sorry. I'm noticing some of the comments as we're talking here, and I don't recognize your flag. So where is Kyrgyzstan, Andre? I got to know, because now I'm curious. Being a stand, it almost makes me think it's one of the stands, one of the former Soviets, but I don't know. I'm going to keep going, but when I see this pop up, I will see what you say. Kyrgyzstan. Somebody tell me where that is. All right, so let me keep going here. Thank you. Who's that? Scott. Thank you for that. Anyway, so Zelensky met with Congress today. I don't think anything particular happened. What was interesting about it is that he did come out of sort of both meetings with Republicans and Democrats on his side. So we had the Senate meeting, at least. Thank you. I would block me. The Senate meeting, at least, he came out of the Senate meeting with both the Republican leader Mitch McConnell and the Democratic leader Senator Schumer, which was really nice because it was a bipartisan show. Oh, it's a 4chan thing. Well, I assumed it was a city, not a country. I know the countries. It wasn't a country, but I thought maybe it was a city in one of the stands or something. Yeah, okay, that's funny. But it was good because it was a bipartisan show of support with both Republicans and Democrats. So that was good, because there's a lot of problems, obviously, with Republican support in the U.S. House of Representatives. Zelensky also went to the Pentagon today. He laid flowers at the memorial for September 11th. He and his wife were there. The ATACMS, so it has been officially confirmed that Ukraine is not getting the ATACMS missiles today as part of their weapons package they're getting from the United States. According to the National Security Advisor, Biden's National Security Advisor at the White House, Jake Sullivan, who everyone thinks is a big part of the problem. The other part of the problem is probably General Milley, people think, the top uniformed general in America, but Jake Sullivan definitely is a problem. Thank you, Sean. According to Sullivan today, listen to this. Listen to this statement, okay? Now, just to remind folks, ATACMS are the missile system that most defense experts think Ukraine really needs, that would make a huge difference for Ukraine. Biden has been refusing to give them for a long time now. He's come up with lots of different reasons. He started by saying that he was afraid that Ukraine was going to use them to attack Russia and Russia itself because they go too long. They go 200 miles, 300 kilometers. And if Ukraine gets weapons that go 200 miles or 300 kilometers, Ukraine will attack Russia proper. So the French and the British went ahead and gave Ukraine cruise missiles that go almost 200 miles, 300 kilometers. And what did the Ukrainians do? They did not attack Russia proper. They attacked Russian troops, of course, in Ukraine, but they did not attack Russia. So Biden lost that argument. Then the White House started saying, and they did a lot of this, by the way, thank you, Trilytic. They did a lot of this sort of quietly through the media, but they started telling the media, we don't have enough, If we go to war with China over Taiwan, thank you, Canada Zen, we need all of our ATACMS missiles. Well, then the experts started saying, well, no, ATACMS probably aren't the kind of weapon you would be using on an island versus in Ukraine, so that doesn't really make sense. And a couple of weeks ago, somebody from the Pentagon came out and said, oh, we discovered we've got lots of ATACMS. We have more than enough to give Ukraine. So that argument went out the window. All along, and I think this is the real reason, all along, there has been this other little thing that basically it would be escalation. It would be escalatory. That's the word the Biden folks use, escalatory. Now, escalatory doesn't really mean anything. What it means is we're afraid of angering Vladimir Putin. Thank you, John S. I am convinced that Biden thinks if Ukraine, and I think it's Crimea in particular, Crimea being the peninsula in the south, right here, there we go. If Biden is convinced that if Ukraine takes back Crimea, Putin will lose it and Putin will use nukes. I am convinced that's what's going on here. I think it's BS. I don't think it's possible that Putin's going to use nukes. The nukes do not benefit Putin if he uses them. And if he uses them, NATO gets in the war. NATO will not have a choice but to get in the war if Russia were to use nukes. And Russia is having a very difficult time beating Ukraine, right? At this point, what are they going to do? right? They're not going to, I mean, they're not going to get NATO involved too. In any case, that's Biden's fear. That also explains, therefore, why we've been so weird about giving Ukraine weapons all along, why each step of the way we've been like saying no, 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 and then yes, and then we drag out how long the yes takes to actually get the weapons there. The same thing we're doing with F-16s now, the same thing we're doing with tanks. We said yes about tanks finally in last January, and we kept saying no before that. Thank you, Timothy. Then we had to train on the tanks. Now, who knows what the problem is now? The tanks were supposed to arrive there 2 weeks. In the last 2 weeks, they didn't arrive. Now they're saying a couple days, some of them will arrive. F-16s. The Biden administration said, no, we're not going to give you fighter jets. Finally, in May, they came along and said, okay, we'll give you the fighter jets, but there's got to be training. Of course, there's got to be training, right? Well, it took them 3 months to come up with, just to approve the training. And people kept asking them, and they kept going, well, you know, it's very difficult to come up with a training plan with a lot of countries. 3 freaking months. The Ukrainians are dying here, guys. I mean, Ukrainians, you guys know this. Ukrainian civilians are dying. Ukrainian soldiers are dying even more. And it took us 3 months to come up with a teaching plan? I mean, seriously? They were dragging their feet. Well, now the teaching plan has begun, and the administration is still saying, well, Ukraine probably won't get the weapons until the F-16s until next August. Thank you, Nicola. Why next August? The Ukrainian troops, at least the initial batch of fighters, the initial batch of pilots who are getting trained, they will be ready in January or February to fly those planes. But we're not going to give them the planes until next August. Why? Who knows? I do. I actually do, because Biden's dragging this out because he doesn't want to piss off Vladimir Putin. Okay. So with all of that in mind, I want you to listen to this statement today from Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan. Okay. Listen to this about the ATACMS that he's not going to give. As he's weighed, he meaning Biden, as he's weighed all that up until today, Biden has determined that he would not provide ATACMS, but he is also not taking it off the table in the future. I mean, like, in other words, he's thought a lot about it, and the answer is no. But that doesn't mean it'll always be no. I mean, seriously, he sounds like some parent to a little 3-year-old, you know? No dessert tonight. That doesn't mean you always won't get dessert, but no dessert tonight. I mean, like, what does that even mean, right? It may not always be no. As I said, guys, this is, I mean, actually, I'm going to read you. Let me read you this first. This is an editorial today in the Washington Post. Washington Post, you guys may know, is the big newspaper here in Washington, D.C., very famous, old newspaper. Editorials are not necessarily, they're not as powerful as they used to be, okay? Editorials used to be a big deal. It used to be a big thing getting an editorial from a paper critical of the administration. It is still beneficial because when I want to read you 3 paragraphs from this editorial. And when you hear this editorial, I want you to think of everything I've been telling you for months. Okay. And what's at least beneficial is, thank you, Charles. You know, people like me have been saying this for a while about Biden. To have somebody like the Washington Post editorial board say it, it at least gives a, you know, patina of credibility or veneer of credibility to what people like me are saying, because people hear it and they go, you know, I've been hearing other people say this and I keep saying, no, 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 Biden wouldn't do that. Listen to this from the Washington Post today, okay? 3 paragraphs. There is no single weapon system that would provide the Ukrainians with game-changing firepower. Over time, however, the Ukrainians have proven adept at using most of the weapons they have been given. Mr. Biden should stop dawdling and provide Kyiv with ATACMS. Mr. Biden's success in galvanizing U.S. allies also has not been matched by a full-court press to prepare Americans for a long struggle. The White House repeats that it will stand by Ukraine as long as it takes. The implicit goal is to convince Mr. Putin that the war has become too costly to Russia's military, economy, and standing in the world. To continue, the idea is that he, Putin, might be compelled eventually to negotiate if he is subjected to the right combination of pressure and inducements. Yet, while Mr. Biden has delivered speeches on Ukraine on his travels to Lithuania and Kyiv, he has yet to give a major address about the war from the Oval Office. The Oval Office meaning, right, the president's office in the White House, directed at the American people. He can make the case forcefully for intensified U.S. support, including by explaining his policy's deterrent effect on Chinese ambitions in East Asia. It's like I wrote this. East Asia. It should be a message with bipartisan appeal that the best way to dissuade China from invading Taiwan is to succeed in thwarting Russia in Ukraine. This is everything I've been talking about. He's dawdling. He's dragging it out. He's not making his case. I mean, he's not making his case. And the thing that's really kind of ticking me off now, and I wrote about it on Twitter today, Biden, as I said, Biden does not want Ukraine taking Crimea. Okay. Thank you, Ernie. Biden does not want Ukraine to win, but Biden does not want Ukraine to lose either. And this is a nuanced argument. Okay. Not wanting someone to win does not mean you want them to lose. In this case, I will tell you exactly how to think about it. Biden is afraid that if Putin loses, Putin will freak out and do God knows what, right? So Putin can't lose. But Biden's afraid if Putin wins, that's a disaster, right? We lose Ukraine. Ukraine becomes part of Russia. It gets wiped off the map, which is genocide. And in principle, we don't like genocide to start with. But also, if the Russians take over Ukraine, they'll be emboldened to attack more of their neighbors, and we could get into a world war, right? So you don't want Russia to win. But you don't want Russia to lose, Biden would say, because we're afraid he'll go nuclear. Who knows what he'll do if he loses, right? Therefore, you don't want Ukraine to win because Putin loses, but you don't want Ukraine to lose because Putin wins. And that's dangerous too. You want a tie. You want both countries to get tired and say, we need to negotiate and this has got to stop. The problem is, that was kind of a stupid policy because it was based on the notion. Well, first of all, it was based on the notion that both countries would basically get tired. Why would Ukraine get tired of trying to get its territory back, right? I mean, imagine the Russians invaded your country and took 20% of your country. You're going to get tired of trying to get 20% of your country back? I mean, it's a stupid supposition that we had that Ukraine was just going to go, you know what? This is really hard. Maybe we should just give them half our country, right? The second thing is, it's also a stupid proposition to just assume that the Russians are going to get tired and want to negotiate. In what possible universe does Vladimir Putin just, we fought for a while, we're getting tired, let's just come to a fair conclusion? Vladimir Putin? I mean, come on, right? So that's a stupid proposition. What really worries me about this is, the other problem here is Biden does not have a strategy for victory. He does not have a plan for victory. I should say this. Let me rephrase that. Biden's plan for victory is a plan for negotiations, right? He wants both sides to get tired, so they'll negotiate. The problem is that's taking a long time, obviously. That means the war is going to go long. Thank you, Pam. And by the war going long, what's happened? We gave Russia the chance because we gave them time. Thank you, Ava. Because we didn't get Ukraine the weapons they needed, the war was drawn out longer, right? Ukraine could have, whether they could have ended it, who knows? But Ukraine could have done a hell of a lot better had they gotten the weapons they needed and gotten them sooner from all of us, right? That was the first thing. Thank you, Lisa and Jonathan on TikTok. Second of all, by dragging things out, we let Russia dig in. We gave Russia time to put in a lot more defenses, a lot more landmines, a lot more tank mines, right? And basically, Ukraine has been going really, really slowly in the counteroffensive because Russia had way too much time to prepare their defenses. That's our fault, okay? Thirdly, what do you think happens when the war gets dragged out? Okay, and that has been Biden's strategy. And I mean, again, I will bet you it's Macron and Schultz as well. I'm not going to just blame Biden, but Biden's we're the 800-pound gorilla in the room here when it comes to the war. America is kind of leading this, right? I mean, for better or for worse, right? We've got the most strength here. Okay, by dragging this out, what are we doing? We are making it so that the American people start going sour on the war. Like their polls are still tied. They're okay, but they're not great. They're going down in America. The longer this goes, they go down. But part of the reason the polls are going down in America is because Biden, as the Washington Post said, isn't explaining why the hell the war matters, A, and B, what his freaking strategy is, right? Because I'm not the only one who's watching Biden going, it looks like you don't want Ukraine to lose, but it also looks like you don't really want Ukraine to win. So what's the plan, right? Well, when you get that mixed message from Biden, you start to go, why are we here, right? Biden doesn't tell us why we're here. I mean, I wrote this on Twitter today. As a Ukraine supporter, I don't want $200 billion going to a war if we don't know why the hell we're there, right? I don't want $200 billion going to a war if you don't have a plan for victory. Then why? I mean, that's what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? Right? We're just going to throw money at it when we don't even have a freaking plan? I think we should put money in the war, and I think we should have a plan, and we should have a plan to beat Russia, is what our plan should be. But we shouldn't put money if Biden's going to sit there and go, well, I don't really know why we're there. And, I don't really want to win. Then why the hell are you doing this? Also, again, politically is what I'm talking about too. And I always talk about messaging too. Messaging wise, this is incredibly dangerous what Biden is doing. Because again, he drags it out. He doesn't, thank you, Courtney. He drags it out, the war. He doesn't explain why we're there. So people start souring on the war. So the longer it goes, right, the less support we have. And again, it's going longer because Biden's goal is to drag out the war longer. And then what happens? We make it more possible. Thank you, Pam. We make it more possible for the MAGA Republicans to win in the election and the presidency. If Trump wins the presidency, this war could be dead. I mean, if Ron DeSantis doesn't look like he's going to win anymore, but if Trump were to win, Ukraine could be dead. I mean, Trump could just cut it off entirely, cut off all the aid. And why is that a problem? I mean, we know why that's a problem. Thank you, UW. But it's a problem because Biden is dragging the war out to the next election. Okay. If Biden didn't drag the war out to the next election, we wouldn't have to worry about the next election. Had we given Ukraine what it needed early on, the right weapons and the right quantity in the right timeline, Ukraine possibly could have won this war by November of 2014. But now, right? Thank you, Mike. Again, I mean, so Biden could say, the problem is Biden is very worried. Thank you, Marcy and Katie. Very worried that Republicans might win the White House. And if they do, they cut off aid to Ukraine. And very worried about the Republican House of Representatives cutting off aid to Ukraine. Well, okay, fair, and you should be worried. But it's your policy that got us here. You're the one not defending why we're there. You're the one whose goal was to drag the war out. And by dragging the war out, you made the election relevant. Absolutely. I mean, it just, again, I'm sorry. This is absolutely outrageous what is going on with this man. He is, and again, this is why Obama got pissed at me, frankly. I told you guys the other day. I personally love Obama. He was a great president. He got pissed off. I mean, I got him pissed off about the gay rights stuff. He wasn't being very good. I called him out on it. It got him mad. There's a whole couple pages in a book about it. It's very funny. The short story is Obama and gay marriage was being very bad. And I called him out. It caused a huge firestorm of news in the US. And the guy working on my deputy on my blog, because my blog was very big in the US at the time. My deputy on my blog was, thank you, California, for the gift, went to the White House Christmas party. Thank you, Dobby. And he goes to the White House Christmas party and Biden sees him. I'm not Biden. Obama sees him and Obama knew who he was and pulls him aside and says, I've done everything your community wanted. I did this, I did that, I did that. And you people are beating me up and it's not fair. And he's just yelling at my deputy on my blog in front of everybody. Because he's pissed off because we were challenging him publicly on gay marriage. It's a much longer story. It's a much longer story, but it's funny as hell. Absolutely funny as hell. And by the way, Obama said he was, because somebody said, PT said, Obama said he was evolving on gay marriage. He said he was evolving when my deputy went to the White House to interview him. The last little story I'll tell you about Obama is Obama invited the heads of the top 5 blogs to come, the top 5, Democratic blogs to come to the White House. I had one of them and invited the 4 heads of the blogs. And for my blog, he refused to invite me. He invited my deputy. Thank you, Dora. Because the thinking at the White House at the time was I was the mean one and my deputy was the nice one. Now, they did not know that it was my deputy that kept pushing me to be harsher about Obama, right? So they invite my deputy and my deputy gives them this long lecture on gay marriage. And Obama says, look, my views on gay marriage are evolving. So the famous Obama evolving quote came because my blog interviewed him. Anyways, like I said, and then 6 weeks later, he saw my guy at the White House Christmas party and went ballistic, Obama, because he was so pissed that we were criticizing him. But you know what? My point in telling you guys that is I don't like these sort of buzzwords people use like hold truth to power or whatever the hell the expression is. So I'm not going to use that. But you get things done in Washington or in politics overall by holding people accountable. And sometimes, unfortunately, you've got to hold your own people accountable if you want good things done. And I think good journalists recognize this, right? Because good journalists will tell you, Christiane Amanpour, she was a big CNN. You guys must know who she is. Big CNN international reporter. And I was reading something about her the other day, and she was saying how she doesn't like to go to the cocktail parties and all these kind of things people go to because it's not her job to schmooze. It's not her job to be friends with all of her sources. And she doesn't want to be their friends because it'll make it harder to interview. It's her job to hold them accountable. And if they don't like it, they don't like it. And I think to be effective in politics from I'll say an activist perspective, even though I wouldn't call what I do on Ukraine activism per se, but it is in the sense that I have a position, I have a policy, and I push it, right? I'm trying to accomplish something. I'm trying to accomplish a goal here, right? A political goal. Thank you, Alexander. In order to do that, sometimes you've got to challenge your own people, and I do support Biden. And Biden's done a great job in Ukraine, but he's also screwing up. And I fear that Biden has done an amazing job saving Ukraine. And I also fear that Biden's current strategy is going to lose Ukraine. And therefore, what kind of human being would I be if I sat back and didn't say anything when I was convinced that what Biden is doing is going to lose Ukraine? And by the way, if you're a Biden supporter, he loses Ukraine and his presidency can kiss his presidency goodbye, because then it's just going to be right. It's going to be Biden, the loser, Biden, Afghanistan all over again. Right. So there's that aspect too, of sometimes you have to speak out in order to save people you like. All right. Okay. V Viper, funny you say this because I have a section on this coming up. V Viper says, how much is the coming change in season going to impact the counteroffensive? You're funny. I have a whole big section on this. I worry that the biggest issue will be the reduction in support coming in during an offensive slowdown process. Well, let me look at my notes here, and I will, hang on here. I will bring this up and tell you this right now. And then Daniel, I'll get to yours in a second. Here it is. Okay. Sky News. Michael Clark at Sky News. Michael Clark's very good. He's, their military analyst. And he did an analysis today on just that question. Thank you, Danon. On just that question of how will the changing seasons with winter fall coming up first. Thank you. Who is that with the, I missed that. Who was that with the hands? Thank you, guys. I saw the hands and it's not showing me who you were though. The fall is coming first. In the next 2 to 4 weeks, the rainy season begins in Ukraine. Then it turns into winter and the rain turns into snow and freezing. So first, the ground will be wet and mushy. Then the ground will be hard and frozen. Let me read you this from Sky News, only because also one of you brought this up the other day. So it's funny that Viper, you brought this up. Listen to this. Michael Clark from Sky News. Mud and wet ground make it harder for tanks and armored vehicles to get off the roads. In other words, if they're on the roads, it's easier for them to ride because they're solid roads. If they get in the fields, in the countryside, the rain is going to make the ground mushy and they can get stuck, okay? So mud and wet ground make it harder for tanks and armored vehicles to get off the roads. On the roads, they are more vulnerable and predictable, moving in long lines, which makes them prime targets for aircraft and artillery, right? It makes sense, right? Think of that Russian convoy, that 40-mile-long convoy they had at the beginning of the war. And literally, it's 40 miles of trucks and tanks in a row. So all you have to do is keep bombing and bombing and bombing and bombing, right? So that's the danger of them being on the road. Infantry moving forward also is relatively hampered by the mud compared to men in trenches who have an easier job even when it is wet. Oops, hang on. Page 5. But when the ground actually freezes, which it will in Ukraine, then tanks can spread out laterally again. In other words, off the roads, they can get back into the fields. Men in trenches and defensive positions suffer a lot in the cold if their clothes, equipment, and food are substandard. We saw this last winter, a lot of the Russians actually dying in their trenches because they didn't have supplies. When the trees are bare, they lose a lot of natural cover, so they are more vulnerable to local drone observation and mortar rounds. Oh, that's interesting. So the men in trenches are in more danger. Actually, I would also say vehicles in woods are in more danger because you don't have the leaves. And if you don't have the leaves, all of a sudden you can see the ground and you can see the men in trenches and drop grenades on them, right? Generally speaking, winter weather makes offensive operations more difficult, and winter is miserable for everyone who has to fight through it. There you go. But like I said, very funny that you actually brought that up. because I had a big section ready. So I jumped ahead for you. Okay, hold on. I'm just Xing this off so I know. There we go. All right. Let me do a quick pitch for my memberships and then we'll continue here. One of the ways you guys can help me is by becoming monthly subscribers to my broadcast. You can do it in a number of ways. You can become a monthly subscriber, which basically means giving a monthly donation automatically. You can do it on TikTok by becoming a TikTok subscriber. It should be something on the page right there. I think it's a star or something. You can do it. You can do it on YouTube by becoming a YouTube subscriber. You will notice the folks whose names are in green. They are the folks like Tim and Daniel and Carlos and who else we got? I've got more people here. I'm scrolling. Okay, Tim, Carlos. I don't want to go too far back. Thank you, Frederick. Those are the folks who are giving monthly. So you get your name changing. If you're a monthly subscriber as well, thank you, Chase. You will be able to join our special Saturday show where every Saturday morning, almost every Saturday morning, I get together with folks from, thank you, Adam. I get together with folks on TikTok and Discord. Thank you, UW, on TikTok and Discord. And I have a private show just for the paid subscribers as a thank you to you guys, Tim as well, and Craig. Craig and Tim, I see you. And Chris, I see you guys. And it's just a way of thanking you guys, but it's kind of interesting. Usually we get Vlad to join us from Ukraine, so he's able to give us kind of a useful thing there, his perspective. Thank you, Sally, for the super sticker. Anyway, so lots of ways you can help. You can also join via Ko-fi. You can find the Ko-fi link in my bio on TikTok. Just click the link there. You guys can find Ko-fi at the bottom of the screen when I don't have Daniel's question up. You can also do it via Twitch to my Aravosis account, and you can do it on Discord itself. On Discord, you can also just sign up. On my Discord community, discord.aravosis.com. So lots of ways you guys can help. If you can, I'd appreciate it. All right. Daniel has a question. Daniel O'Neill, a very generous question, of course. Classic Daniel. Could Biden be dragging out support for Ukraine into the next election? Thank you, Mark Starr. Just to capture the Ukrainian supporters' vote? No, because there aren't that many of them. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I should rephrase that. There are a lot of Ukrainian supporters. There aren't a lot of Ukrainians in America. Likewise, could Trump trip him up by adopting a very strong Russia bad, Ukraine must win stance for 2024? I mean, Trump isn't going to do that. So I don't even see that happening. Now it would be funny if he did, right? I mean, now what you are going to see is you will see that from some of the Ukraine supporters among Republicans. I think you'll see that from Mike Pence, the former vice president under Trump. You'll see that from Nikki Haley, our former UN ambassador. You'll see that from Mike Pompeo, former CIA director, former Secretary of State. All of those guys and gals will argue that we need to defend Ukraine and Biden hasn't been doing a good enough job, right? So they'd probably bring up a lot of the arguments I would bring up and say, he's done good, but he needs to do better, right? So they would say that. Trump, I don't see it happening in a million years. No. Could Biden be dragging out support just to capture Ukrainian supporters? I don't think so, because think about it this way. The best way to capture the support of Ukrainian supporters is winning the war. Biden wins the war, and we say, that's it. This guy, amazing, right? Support him. He saved Ukraine. If you really care that much about Ukraine, you're going to be like, that's it. I'm supporting him, right? I don't think your support goes away because we win the war, right? I don't think you get over it. I think if anything, your support gets watered down because he's exactly what's happening now. Biden's dragging it out. He's looking weak, and he's making people like me think he could lose this war. And that does not make me want to support him again. I'm going to support him again, but it doesn't make me want to support him again. So that's my take on it. Petitions. I am not a petition fan, Edward. Could you get a petition your followers could sign and maybe a letter template we can send to the White House to get Biden to support more? The thing is, thank you for the lemonade there on TikTok. I don't think petitions make a difference. I think, look, letters to the White House aren't a bad idea. Emails, you can just do emails, really. Letters are nice, though. I will say letters have an added value because they show thought, So also letters to members of Congress, I think. Emails are kind of easy and quick. A letter, I think, just makes it a little more. Sam, I was wondering what happened to you. You disappeared on us. Anyway, thank you for that. Don't worry. You know what's funny? Sorry, Sam, one of our regulars, has been gone for a while. He was fighting in Ukraine and came back and disappeared. I was thinking today, I kid you not, I thought today, and I said, somebody said they had a piece from a Russian tank, and I can't remember who it was. That's funny. Yeah, that's okay. I appreciate that, but I'm glad you're back. I don't think I've seen you since you've been back, really. Thank you, Super Hornet, for that. In any case, yeah, so I think sending letters to Congress is good. Sending letters to the White House can't hurt. A fact sheet, honestly, I don't think you'd have to say much. I think you would have to say why the war matters to you, why you think this is important for America, right? And just tell the truth, just why you think it matters, why you think as an American it matters to you, why you care about this war. And you just simply have to say that you want him to provide ATACMS weapons, ATACMS weapons to Ukraine. And you think the experts say Ukraine needs it, and you don't understand why he's dragging his feet. That's all. You don't need it. He's not going to be swayed. I mean, his people aren't going to be swayed by a good argument, right? What they're going to be swayed by is somebody wrote intelligently and made an argument, and they're going to put you in the pile of intelligent people who made the argument in favor. It doesn't hurt. And same thing for members of Congress. It doesn't hurt. So that's what I would do. I don't think you need the talking points. I think you know enough about why this matters to you, and just throw in, and therefore that's why I want you to support providing ATACMS weapon systems to Ukraine. And that's it. That's it. There you go. But thank you for that, Edward. Let me look here. Okay, I've got you guys covered. Let's keep going here. Oh, so this is good news. So Institute for the Study of War says that there was a significant breakthrough by Ukrainians today in the counteroffensive. So I'll get this map's handier than the one I'm wearing. We are talking about kind of the main battle that's happening here in Zaporizhia province. As you guys know, there's a number of different battles, right? There's little skirmishes going here by the river. This is the big counteroffensive battle here in Zaporizhia. You've also got a battle here southwest of Donetsk, a significant counteroffensive battle, but not as important as this one. You've got the battle for Bakhmut. Ukrainians are trying to get it back. You've got the battle for Kupiansk. The Russians are trying to get it back, okay? We're talking about this one, which is the big counteroffensive battle. This is the one where the Ukrainians want to go all the way to the coast and cut the Russian occupation in half. Remember, the Russian occupation is all of this. So cut it in half, cut the supply lines, really hurt Crimea and Kherson. So all of that, put this down. And Institute for Study of War, big defense think tank here in Washington, D.C. And let me just read you a little what they said today. Ukrainian, and they're talking about that area in the west of Zaporizhia, I was telling you, the big important battle that's been going on to cut the Russian occupation in half. Ukrainian heavy equipment has broken through the Russian lines near Verbove. Verbove, again, is one of the small towns there in the western area there. Institute for the Study of War has observed a significant inflection in western Zaporizhia. Ukrainian forces are for the first time confirmed to be operating armored vehicles, Stryker and Marder infantry fighting vehicles, beyond the Russian anti-tank ditch and Dragon's Teeth obstacles near Verbove. I'm going to read more in a second. What they mean is, for the first time, we were hearing in the last 2 weeks that the Ukrainians were starting to break beyond the significant Russian defenses, okay? Right? What they're saying now is, not only have the Ukrainians seemed to have moved beyond these Russian defenses, but they've now moved heavy equipment, like infantry fighting vehicles, not tanks, but just short of tanks, big, heavy things with big guns. They've now moved them into position, and they've moved them beyond the Russian defenses. So the Russian defenses, like the Dragon's Teeth, which are the big cement pillars, they look like the top half of a diamond, like this. They're big cement pillars sticking out of the ground in order to stop tanks and these kind of vehicles from going by. The fact that they've been now wiped out, this line, the big vehicles are able to actually get by now, which is a big deal. So that's great. Let me keep reading here from Institute for Study of War. We are not yet prepared to say that Ukraine has broken through this portion of the Russian line, since these vehicles have not yet penetrated the last visible prepared defensive positions. Now, that was 3 hours ago. 3 hours later, ISW looked like they were saying they may have broken through. But the ability to bring armored vehicles to and through the most formidable Russian defenses intended to stop them and to operate them near prepared Russian defensive positions is an important sign of progress in the counteroffensive. Recent footage indicates that the Ukrainian breach of the first two layers of this Russian defensive line is significant enough to permit Ukrainian vehicles to advance through them. We know that. It also indicates that Ukrainian forces has suppressed Russian artillery and other anti-tank systems in the area enough to bring their vehicles forward and have them survive. That was the other issue. At the beginning of the war, not the beginning of the war, at the beginning of the counteroffensive, the Ukrainians brought some of their vehicles forward and got them destroyed. So the Bradley fighting vehicles, we know a Challenger got destroyed too. And basically they realized, okay, we've got to slow down. We've got to get in there and really slowly bring our men in and go through, the sappers, the guys that go and women who go and basically defuse the mines, the landmines on the ground. So this is, any case, this is good. This is good. We're going to have more. Well, we will visit the story tomorrow again because there isn't enough out. Basically, Institute for the Study of War is saying this. Nobody else is saying it yet. Now, ISW is a big defense think tank. They're not dumb. But the fact that nobody else is talking about it yet, let's wait another day and see. But this is good. This is great news. I will say this, some of you who I know, I hate quoting people. I hate quoting people. You may, but I don't like quoting my friends unless they tell me I can quote them. But one of my friends basically said one of my military friends said Russia is effed with this, that it is such a big deal, the Ukrainian troops being able to break through these lines and breaking through with the heavy equipment, like the infantry fighting vehicles, things like that. So this is great news. Poland and Ukraine, really nasty stuff going on. It looks like, okay, that was Callum. Yeah, it was Callum. Callum, who's former British military and who basically was an expert in demining, defusing mines, etc. So he knows what they're facing, said he thinks the Russians are absolutely effed now. Thank you, Happy Beach, as a result of Ukraine breaking through this line. It's that significant. Now, Poland, really weird stuff going on with Poland and Ukraine. It looks like maybe it's defusing finally, but basically, I mentioned this yesterday. The Europeans, where do I start with this? Grain. You know about grain. You know about the fact that the Russians have been stopping the Ukrainians from exporting their grain, right? They've been threatening to blow up ships, etc. And big important export for Ukraine. They need the money. The world needs the grain. So they've been sending a lot of it through European countries more than usual, sending it by land through their borders, right? To Poland and Slovakia, other European borders. Well, the countries it's going through are not happy because Ukrainian grain is cheaper than their own grain. So these countries like Poland are basically finding their farmers are getting impoverished because people aren't buying Polish farmers' grain in Poland. They're buying Ukrainian grain that's cheaper, and it hurts the Polish farmers, right? Also, you have Polish elections coming up. Exactly, Roma's mentioning next month, and therefore the party wants to appease voters and not piss off the farmers. It's not just Poland, but Poland's one of them. So you've had this war building between Ukraine and a number of countries, specifically Ukraine and Poland, on grain. The Ukrainians threatened in response, because the Poles are causing issues with the grain. The Ukrainians threatened in response to ban other Polish imports into Ukraine. The Poles then turned around and said, basically criticized, Zelensky criticized Poland at the UN. Poland then criticized Zelensky at the UN and said a really horrific speech yesterday. There was a speech by Duda, the president of Poland, saying, when someone's drowning, you have to be careful they don't pull you down with them. Because when someone's drowning and you go to save them, they can grab onto you and they can drown you too. And he's literally saying this about Ukraine. It was horrific. Well, then the Polish, who was this? The Polish prime minister, not the president. The president's the big guy, not the prime minister. But the prime minister comes out and says today that Poland is not going to be sending any more weapons to Ukraine. They're going to focus instead on arming themselves now, and tries to pretend like it's not connected to the grain blow up, but it clearly is connected to the grain blow up. That's really bad. This is getting ridiculous at this point. Okay. Ukraine needs Poland, but the other thing is Poland needs Ukraine. Poland is not just in this war for the goodness of its heart. None of us are, right? Poland understands that if Ukraine falls to Russia, they've got Russia on their freaking border. It's bad enough they got Belarus, right? But they've got Russia on their border, and they're not really thrilled of Russia being all along their eastern border, okay? So Poland has a reason to support, a valid reason, to support Ukraine. this is just getting ridiculous. Now, the one good thing is the Polish foreign ministry said today that it was surprised by the prime minister's statement that Poland is not sending more weapons to Ukraine. That's good news, because that sounds like Duda basically stepped in and pulled it back. That he's now going to blame that on the prime minister and say, oh, that wasn't our policy, right? Blah, 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 blah. So that's good. Now, I am not willing to turn my light down a little. I'm not willing to blame this on Poland. I think both parties are to blame. I understand how Poland feels about the grain, and they're not wrong. I mean, they've got to worry about their own constituency. I understand how Ukraine feels about the grain. They've got to worry too. Both sides have gotten very pissy with each other. I think obnoxious with each other, and they both have to stop it. From Ukraine's perspective, you've got allies that matter. Don't piss them off. From Poland's perspective, this war matters to you too. And I will say, Duda is in a very interesting position, because up until Ukraine, Poland was best known for being the country that was falling back on its democracy, like Hungary, that Poland was going backwards because Duda didn't really believe in democracy. That was the impression we had of him here in the States. Okay. So the war broke out, and all of a sudden Duda made Poland relevant again. Duda made Poland great again, so to speak. He made Poland strong again, in the sense that all of a sudden Poland is now the bulwark of NATO on the eastern side of the bloc, rather than being that country kind of like Hungary that no longer believes in democracy and we're not sure we like them anymore. Right. Big deal what he did to this country. But, only the West is saying this? Well, I got news for you. Poland's a member of the West, so it kind of matters that the West is saying it. Yeah. In any case, so from Duda's perspective too, this is really stupid. This war has kind of made him a great wartime leader. He shouldn't then shoot himself in the foot with all of this. So anyway, Ukraine is winning, actually. Russia, by the way, we got another troll here. Russia said they were going to win in 3 days. We are now at day 575 of Russia's 3-day war. So if you're going to tell me Russia's winning the war, I got news for you. They were supposed to win the war 572 days ago, and they haven't. So there. Anyway, oh, you made a certificate? Oh, you're cute. All right. On Discord. Oh, that's fine. Yeah. I'll check on Discord. Thanks, Sam. I will check that. All right. Next up, the first Ukrainian grain ship, the ship that was actually carrying grain, that Ukraine had its little plot to get the ship out by hugging the NATO coast. That ship has arrived at the Bosporus, which is the isthmus, right, connecting the Black Sea to the Aegean. Basically, it's cutting through Turkey. So it's arrived there, which basically means it made it safely, which is pretty wild. Ukraine has received 10 Swedish variants of Leopard 2 tanks. Another German aid package was announced. Germany's kind of going whole hog on this week. This is the second aid package this week alone. Germany has provided Ukraine with satellite communications equipment, trucks, and spare parts for mine-clearing tanks in the latest package. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense reports that a Pepsi Cola factory in Ukraine was destroyed by the Russians overnight. Ukraine found it ironic because Pepsi is one of the companies that has refused to pull out of Russia. So Pepsi refused to pull out of Russia, as Ukraine explained it. The Ukraine government put out a tweet. I believe they put out a tweet. Pepsi refuses to leave Russia. Pepsi pays Russia taxes, like $800 million in taxes. Russia takes Pepsi's taxes, makes missiles. Russia takes missiles, blows up Pepsi. So kind of funny. Haha, Pepsi. I did not know that Pepsi, by the way, also was refusing to pull out of Russia. That's incredibly obnoxious. But like I said, did not know that. And you know what? That's it for the news. All right, I'm going to show you guys again. Our auctions are now live on Discord. We've got a wonderful Discord community, discord.aravosis. Moving in my seat. discord.aravosis.com. It's a really cool community. It's a chat community, basically. One of the nice that we've got Ukraine, we've got lots of topics we cover there. What I really like about the Ukraine thing is a lot of us are there kind of all day long, and I share news as I'm seeing it throughout the day that I think is interesting, and we talk about it, and you guys share news too. So it's kind of a nice place to check in and talk. And also, if anybody asks me a question, as long as you at my name, Aravosis, my account there, I will see it and I will answer too. So it's a way to reach out to me. In any case, one of the things we do over Discord is I have cool auctions of cool Ukrainian stuff that I get. And the auction monies, 50% of the winning auction goes back to Ukraine. I just sent Vlad actually $435 today for the auctions from last week. So we've been putting money back in Ukraine every week. Lately, we've been doing it to buy camouflage nets and things for the military. Some of it has also been for humanitarian aid. And half of the money also goes to support me because I do this full time. And I basically can't pay my bills unless I get support. So that's why I hit you guys up for support for the gifts on TikTok, etc. But we also have cool auctions, and I will show you some of the auction items we've got. They're all live now on the Discord. Like I said, it's discord.aravosis.com. Very cool Azov Battalion patch. These are the guys who held off the 14,000 Russian troops with only 2,000 Ukrainians in Mariupol at the Azovstal steel plant. Very cool. You do not have to be a VIP subscriber for the auctions. The way it works is one section says public auctions. That's for everybody. The other section says VIP. That section is only for the paid subscribers as a thank you, basically to give them a benefit. But the other one that says public is for everybody. Very cool. I think this is adorable. Very cool Ukrainian shot glass. I was saying for me, it says Ukraine or Ukraina at the top. Personally, I would use this for toothpicks because I think it's really pretty. It would be pretty on a table or in a kitchen, but that's very cool. A cool Ukrainian matchbox that I just think is adorable. It's two little Ukrainian like kids wearing the traditional wear, garb, and it says Ukraina on top. Very cute. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a Matchbox fridge magnet too. Goes on a fridge. Very cool. A neat hand-painted Ukrainian handicraft. This is the, I wrote it down for the auctions. It's not Pitanka. I'm not going to say because it's not Pisanka. It's, the name of the town, guys. Every time I do this, I forget the name of the town. It's a style, Petra, thank you, Petrikivka. Thank you, Darcia. Style, which goes back actually like a very long time. The town used to be painted with all the buildings were painted inside and out like this. And it was some kind of a welcoming spring or not spring, but some warding off evil or something like that. Anyway, very pretty. The egg, which I'm not going to touch anymore because I don't want to ruin it. The Ukrainian Pisanka Easter eggs, this is a goose egg. You can see an angel, and it is a batik style. They use wax. I think you guys, you can see there. They use wax and a pen and basically paint the egg and then dip it in color. And that's how they make the design. This one is white. Typically they're multicolored, but I thought the white one was just beautiful. And it's an angel on one side, and the other side has two little birds and a sunflower and the Ukrainian trident on it. But I don't want to keep touching it because I'm afraid of getting oil from my hands on it. So not doing that. And then the final thing I will show you is, because I think this is pretty cool, is a piece of a Russian Su-34 fighter jet shot down over Ukraine. And this one is particularly cool because at the top, you will see right where my finger is for you guys, a piece of Russian technology there, right? Sort of a little circuit board or whatever you call it. You guys can see it. So right there where my finger is, right? You see the thing. And what's neat about that is I had Best Worst Gamer, one of our followers, who checked this out with me, who used to be a U.S. military aircraft engineer. He looked at it and immediately said, "That's a starter box." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "That's a starter for an engine." I said, "Oh, you mean like the spark that goes off and sets the fuel on fire?" And he said, "Yeah." So he is convinced that this is it hand soldering? I don't know. I can't see that. Is it hand soldering? Sam is laughing and saying it's hand soldering. Okay, I don't know. But what's neat to me is it is an engine starter box for the Su-34 fighters. And again, like I said, the piece of the technology is here, which I think is really neat too. So anyway, we're bidding on these as well. I love these kind of things. I think they're cool. I'm keeping some of these for myself. The ignition system, exactly. That's probably a better way, ignition. But anyway, like I said, auctioning these two, I love these kind of things. To me, I like little mementos of the war. A couple other things. I'll show you a different trip. It doesn't start anymore. No. Yeah, that's not going to be starting any planes anymore. Nope. Anyway, guys, so yeah, check it out, discord.aravosis.com. And as you said, you'll see the VIP auctions are for the monthly subscribers, the paid subscriptions as a thank you. And the other ones, Igniter, the other ones, the public auctions are for everybody. So please do go bid. Remember, half your bid is supporting me and the other half is supporting Ukraine. So it's a win-win. All right. let's do the news, or let's do the talk. So what do you got, guys? Let's do questions, topics. What do you want to talk about? All right. And I hope all their jets will look like, I know Alexandra says, I hope all their jets will look like that soon. I agree. Again, it's been very interesting. Ukraine, like I said, there were more hits on Crimea today. We don't really know enough of what Ukraine's been hitting or not hitting, but they did hit another airbase. Actually, they said they hit a secret airbase today. That was what the Ukrainians were saying. It was a secret Russian airbase they hit, which is very interesting. So anyway, okay, that's now is hand soldering bad? I mean, why would it be bad? Just shows it's inefficient, basically. Any attackums? Roma, Roma, you're coming late to the show. Roma said, any attackums news? I went on a 15-minute rant about attackums at the beginning of the show, Roma. Basically, Biden his national security advisor made clear today that Biden is not sending attackums, but someday maybe he will. So I went off on a little rant about how stupid that is and how basically Biden's going to lose this war potentially, which is really dangerous. My own military think tank, I know. Maybe foreign policy think tank is more up my alley. I don't claim to be the military expert. I do claim to be a foreign policy expert, slightly different. What else we got here? All right, what else, guys? What else? More questions. Hand soldering is a repair. Oh, if it was a replacement, it would be machine soldered. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Interesting. Sam says, it's a mass-produced plane. Hand soldering tells me they're using old-school assembly line instead of modern style with prefabricated circuit boards and components. Oh, that's interesting. I see what you mean. That is interesting. From like an intelligence perspective, it tells you something about how they're made. Yeah. Well, and again, it would be rather inefficient, right? I mean, Leif is saying he thinks it's more a sign of repair. The only thing is, I guess it is possible that the actual construction of the plane is happening under really bad conditions as well, right? Made on a farm. Seriously, it could be, made on a farm, but you get the idea. All right, more questions and comments, guys. What do we got? Hand soldering is likely a repair. Okay, Callum says too. Oh, that's it. I can show you again. That's interesting, actually. Hang on. So I will show you guys on TikTok first. So you can see here that. And I assume the soldering is what's happening on that little, whatever you call that board or whatever it is, right? That's what you're looking at, I'm assuming. And the rest of it, I don't think there's, I don't think there's soldering. No, there's just the piece there. So for you guys, I think your camera is a little better on my computer here. So yeah, you can see a little bit of soldering there. I think it's hard to tell, but here for sure. Oh no, well, yeah, you can see there. So what do you think? If the jet was shot down, the solder could have melted. Oh, that's interesting. That's an old board. That's funny. That's funny. Well, well, SU-34, I Googled, I think the SU-34 might be the one where it's a little bit confusing because it was created maybe in the 2000s and they didn't put it into service till maybe 2014 or 16, if I'm not correct, or if I'm incorrect. So that there's this weird thing of how old it really is, soldered by a child. Well, it was a Russian. Some folks were saying solder would melt from the crash. Yeah. Could Biden be playing a game called fake a slowdown to get other countries to speed up? I don't think so. I think Biden from the beginning, I think we should take Biden at his word. At the beginning of the war, Biden kept warning us about nuclear war. Remember World War III, when we were getting pissed about the fact that we didn't jump on the opportunity when Poland wanted to send MiG fighter jets like that first month or two of the war, and we got pissed at Biden because the administration was like, well, Biden kept saying in response, well, this will be World War III. We just can't do anything. We just can't give them everything, and then it'll be World War III. Basically it would be nuclear war. I think that was a tell from Biden. He was telegraphing what he was sincerely thinking. Biden has been convinced that Putin, if he loses this war, he'll go nuclear, metaphorically and literally. That's what he's convinced. So therefore, every step of the way, Biden has been trying to basically boil what's the whole expression of boiling a frog slowly in water, sort of the thing where basically countries like Hungary or America in the last several years, where basically you slowly get rid of freedom so slowly that people almost don't notice. And each incremental bad thing that happens is like a small bad thing, and people just get used to it. And they don't realize the water has gone from 0 to, 212 degrees, and all of a sudden the frog is boiling. And the frog doesn't realize it until it gets too late that the water is getting hot, right? And I think that's what he's doing. He's trying to intentionally go and slowly say no about the weapons, then say yes about the weapons, then drag out when Ukraine actually gets the weapons, right? Tanks. We finally said, took us 9 months to say yes on tanks. Now it's been 9 more months and they still haven't gotten the tanks. Everything's slow so that Russia can't get upset. But if they do something big and fast, he's afraid Putin will freak out and use a nuke or something. I think it's bullshit, but I used a swear word. Sorry, Mom. I think it's BS, but that's what he's doing. And he's doing it on everything. I don't know what Barrister's Live is, actually. It's got to be a British thing because we don't say barrister over here. Oh, it's very much frustrated Ukraine. I mean, we know that. Yeah. Andy says the British have ATACMS as well. Callum, is that true? That's okay. Crazy American, go to bed. Thank you, Dawn, for the gift. Please keep the TikTok gifts coming, guys. Johnny's got to pay the bills. Thank you. But I know a barrister's a lawyer of sorts. But anyways, do the Brits have ATACMS? Andy's saying they do, or have something similar to ATACMS. What's the deal with that? Sorry, it always takes about 8 or 9 seconds for TikTok to catch up. It's usually a little bit behind. Well, why do you think he's doing it, Ingrid? If you don't think that's what Biden's doing, why is he doing it then? I mean, I appreciate your intelligence, and I've been following U.S. politics at the national level for 35 years. 40. Doesn't mean I'm right, but, I got experience too. Callum says we don't have ATACMS. I could be wrong. You could be, although I'm not sure what your argument is, though. Callum says they don't have anything like ATACMS. No. Interesting. Not going to repeat that, Sam. Anyway, what else? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, Ingrid, that's an interesting argument. Ingrid is saying that, Ingrid, I'm calling you Ingrid. Indrid is arguing that the reason Biden is going so slowly with the aid and so slowly with agreeing is that he's doing it so slowly and incrementally that any reaction from Putin will look like an overreaction. My only response to that would be, so what? Like, Putin doesn't care. I mean, that would be my question is you may have a good argument for this, but why does Putin care if people think he's overreacting, right? To me, I couldn't care less. I mean, I want to win a war. I don't care if you think I'm I'm not knocking you, but I'm saying the argument, you think I'm overreacting. Okay. Okay. You gave your psychological analysis of me. Okay. I don't care. I mean, I'm Putin. I'm committing genocide. You think I'm worrying that people are going to accuse me of overreacting? I'm literally stealing children and taking them to Russia. I'm literally having my troops, violate women. I'm blowing up every day. I'm blowing up civilians on purpose. You think I'm going to care that people accuse me of overreacting? Bah, right? I mean, that would be my argument. I don't think he cares. Now, that doesn't mean that Biden isn't thinking that. Maybe Biden is thinking what you're arguing. But I would argue, I'm not sure. No, but that's an interesting point, though. I mean, that having said that, Biden may be thinking, Biden's not an idiot. And Biden, by the way, what's really frustrating is Biden is an expert on foreign policy. That's his area of expertise. I mean, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which is a big deal in our country. His expertise is foreign policy. Biden absolutely thinks what he's doing is the right thing with Ukraine. Absolutely. He does. But I just cannot figure out what his logic is. Again, I think Millie and Jake Sullivan scared the hell out of him. That's what I think. Which makes sense. I mean, thank you, Heine. I mean, everything's explained by thinking Biden thinks Putin will use a nuke. If you believe that, thank you, Heine and Indrid. If you believe that, then Biden's behavior makes sense. If you really think Putin's going to use a nuke, you do anything to stop it, right? I just don't. And at this point, especially, I think Putin has shown so many times. I mean, there's been literally no impact. I mean, how many? It's been a year and a half of crossing red lines and Putin doing absolutely nothing. Sorry, Penny, we talked about attackums a lot, including just again. So sorry. What else? That's the thing. I think if they use a nuke, they'll be pounded into submission conventionally. That's the thing. I mean, look, I do worry to some degree. We have a nice sunset, oh, yeah, it is a nice sunset tonight. Oh, very pretty. Yeah, I'm like looking out my window. Hard for you guys to tell entirely, but it's a very pretty, the sky tonight. I have this up because the sun comes in, and when it's too bright, it's annoying. But it's a very pretty, like subtle sunset. I like sunsets. Putin using nukes. Here's the thing: the defense people say there's no strategic reason for Putin to use nukes. That basically, it will not help him in the war. It's not like he drops nukes and he's obliterated the Ukrainian army. That's not going to happen, right? So he'd have to be doing it for some other reason. Why? I mean, just because he's mad? He's not an idiot. He'd have to be literally mad, like the British expression, crazy, to do that, right? He's going to use nukes for a reason, not just because he's angry, right? So that's stupid. If he's not using it for military reasons, because he thinks it'll actually help, right? Okay, good. You can see my sunset. Good. Then does he think dropping a nuke is going to convince the Ukrainians to give up? I think if he drops the nuke, it's going to convince the Ukrainians to do all sorts of horrible things to the Russians is what they're going to do. They've got squads all over Russia at this point. And I think those people will do some very bad things in Russia if Russia sets off a nuke in Ukraine. So that's not going to make a difference. So it's not going to stop Ukraine from fighting. Does he think NATO's going to give up if he uses a nuke? Here's the problem. Putin uses a nuke. He possibly loses China as an ally. He possibly loses India. Like they go, okay, we can't support that. America and NATO have no choice but to go crazy in response because we have to establish the principle that you don't use nukes. Okay. Yes, America did 80 years ago. It was World War II and it was 80 years ago. But today we don't want people using nuclear weapons. And if Putin uses them in a conventional war like this, basically uses it like a tactical nuke, as we say, right? Like one on the ground, just in the battlefield. And we let him get away with it. Pakistan will do the same. India will do the same. Israel will do the same. And someday Iran will do the same, right? That basically we're telling, and North Korea will do the same, right? There is no way we can let them get away with this. So that, and I agree with Indrid here, if Putin uses a nuke, we do not have a choice but to go nuclear in a conventional way against him, meaning NATO has to enter the war in some way. I don't know whether it means, I've been saying I could see NATO entering the war and setting up a no-fly zone over most of Ukraine, for example. We don't want to do it now because it would require us blowing things up. But Putin uses a nuke, we might do it. Now, my only concern would be, will Joe Biden actually do that? Or will Joe Biden look at the nuke and go, okay, things have gotten too crazy here. We've got to stop this now. I don't know. Oh, that's a car. I was like hearing explosions out my window, but it's a car. It's a little weird. Anyway, so I don't know. But I do think a NATO, it would be, Indrid says a nuke would result in a full NATO response. We're talking beyond proportional response. I don't think they'd have a choice. And here's the other problem too. A nuke happens. Poland doesn't have a choice but to do something. The Baltic states don't have a choice but to do something because all of them sit there and go, that's it, we're next, right? So it's very dangerous. I mean, it's very, my point is, I see lots of reasons if you're Putin. I see every reason if you're Putin for saying using a nuke is going to get Russia screwed. I see literally no argument for someone to tell Putin, oh, this is a great idea using a nuke. Here's how it will help. And Putin is a smart man. So yeah, I don't see them using nukes, but I don't know. Ticks me off. Nomad Cat, do you think the current political situation is also influencing Biden's approach? No, I really don't. I don't. If anything, if Biden were worried about the current political situation, he would get Ukraine as much aid as possible now. If Biden were worried about, about Ukraine losing support from America, you give them everything you can and see if that you can get them to win the war now, right? I would say you get them the F-16s now, you get them the tanks now, you get them everything, so that maybe there's a chance this counteroffensive can be successful and it becomes a fait accompli. Can nukes fix climate change? No, they also can't fix hurricanes, even though it was suggested once by someone not to be named. So, Solak, do you think that Ukraine hitting some Russian electrical supplies will be like cutting the supply lines of public support for the special military operation? Ukraine has been careful. Thank you, Rose, for the hearts on TikTok. Ukraine has been very careful about not pissing off NATO and not pissing off support in the world. That means they don't do the war crimes that Russia does. They've also been careful about even hitting in Russia. They hit in Russia, but they're not doing anything too nasty, right? Because they don't want to lose NATO support, but they also don't want to use the UN support. It's twofold here. You potentially lose support of some of the NATO countries, Biden, or maybe France and Germany, because some of them at least are freaked out. Biden especially is freaked out about Ukraine, hitting anything in Russia, right? So even if it's legal for Ukraine to do it, even if it's not a war crime for Ukraine to do it, Biden kind of freaks out. Even if it's military targets in Russia, Biden kind of freaks out about that. So that's one reason Ukraine would be careful and hold back. The other reason is that if Ukraine responds like Russia and does what Russia's doing war crimes. So, for example, going after the electrical infrastructure is a war crime. It's illegal. You can't go after civilian. You can go after things that have a military purpose, but you can't just say knocking out the power in the entire country serves a military purpose, which is what Russia's doing. If Ukraine were to do that, it would be a war crime. Having said that, if Russia does it this winter, I'm fine with Ukraine doing it. I think basically, Ukraine, I think, can get away with, I said this before in another show, Ukraine can get away with doing some of the nastier stuff if it doesn't kill people, okay? So it's one thing to do the war crimes that kill people, blowing up civilians on purpose, which is what Russia does all the time, okay? That Ukraine cannot do. They cannot target civilians and try to kill them on purpose. Can you cut off a civilian's power? Sure, of course you can, right? It may not be right legally. Thank you, lizard person. It may not be right legally, but I literally put legal between quotes because who the hell cares? Russia's doing it left and right. They can knock out the power. It's not killing anybody, but it's causing Russia a major inconvenience. So I do think that's what's coming next. Thank you, Anna. And that was part of why Zelensky was telegraphing it the other night on TV here in the States, saying he's going to do it to the Russians if they do it to him. That's what I think is happening next. And by the way, it may have just happened tonight because the Russians attacked power in Ukraine and an explosion happened in a Ukrainian town. Thank you, Indrid. Appreciate that. An explosion happened in a Russian town and took out the power to 5,000 people. Now, it's just one town. It's 5,000 people, but I will guarantee you the Ukrainians have already sort of specced out how to take the power down in Moscow. I think absolutely. Absolutely. Ben Madsen, super chat question. Thank you, Ben, for that. Canada. With General Milley retiring, he's the top American general, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, we call it. With General Milley retiring, do you think his replacement will be a better, worse, or equal influence on Biden in terms of supporting Ukraine? We know who the replacement is. I forget the guy's name. He's very interesting from what I've read of his background. But thank you, Gaia. I don't know that we have any sense of kind of what his view is on Ukraine, but also specifically, what his view is on Ukraine in the sense of, are we giving them enough weapons? Should we be giving them ATACMS? Are we slowing down tanks too much? Are we slowing down F-16s too much? That would be interesting to know. I don't know if we know, and I don't know if we will know. I would say at this point, we believe Milley is part of the problem, the current general. Air Force General C.Q. Brown is his name. Thank you, Vernon. at this point, we believe Milley's a problem, so I'm willing to try somebody else because I do think we're in danger of Ukraine losing the war at the rate Biden's going with this. But have we seen anything from General Brown at all? I doubt you would, though, because he's a general. He can't, a sitting U.S. general cannot express any opinion that differs with Biden's. He can't, So I don't think he would. So my point is, we won't really know what his views are. He's going to tell Biden. He's going to tell Biden privately, and we're never going to know what his view really is. So, Anyway, thank you for that, Ben. Appreciate that. What else? I think we are. Yeah. Yep. M. Pembert is saying, did you say we're in danger of losing the war because of Biden? I think we are. Because I think he's dragging it on too long on purpose. He thinks by dragging it out, somehow there's a possibility of peace talks or something. And I think he's wrong. It's dragging out. And by dragging it out, Ukraine is unable to sufficiently fight back because we're slowly giving them the weapons they need instead of giving them the damn weapons. So Ukraine's able to fight back, but only partially, which means they get back some of their land, but not enough of the land, which means their attack is slower. The counterattack, it gets delayed because they don't have enough weapons. Thank you, Indrid. And it gives the Russians time to build up their defenses, which is what they did this time. The Russians had 3+ months to defend themselves, to dig their trenches, and they made it a lot worse than it could have been, or more than 6 months, or 3 months, really. They made it a lot worse. And by dragging it out now, and I said all this earlier, but I'm making it very short now. By Biden dragging the war out now, you are slowly having American support drop, which, by the way, is also Biden's fault because he's not defending the damn war. He's not telling us. He should be. I always say Donald Trump. Donald Trump, for all of his faults, he knows how to message. Donald Trump's number one messaging technique is not a lie. He lies, but that's not his number one technique. His number one technique is repeating it over and over and over and over and over. Crooked Hillary, the Biden crime family, right? I mean, think of these expressions. Build a wall. Mexico will pay for it. Mexico never paid for it. He never built the wall. Thank you, Hazel. But he said it so many times that people think he did, right? It's brilliant. You repeat stuff again and again and again. Biden never freaking talks about Ukraine. And by the way, Biden never talks about his other successes either when it comes down to it. But he never talks about Ukraine. So yes, that is my concern. I think Biden's dragging the war out. As it gets dragged out, it gives Russia more of a chance to rebuild, Russia a chance to dig in. U.S. support starts to drop because Biden's not defending the war. So the longer it goes, the support drops. And what happens? We're letting the Republican opposition grow, and we're letting the Republicans get a chance to win the White House, which will really cause problems for the war. Thank you, Tomcat. So, the best way to avoid having to worry about Trump winning the election is to finish the war before the election. Why I don't fight for it? First of all, you've proven my axiom. Thank you. Remember, folks, I always told people, by the way, mods, you can get rid of that person now, M. Pembert. You can always tell who a Russian troll is because the first time they say something, you won't be sure. And I always tell my mods, let them say two things, because the first time you won't be sure, but the second time they will always say something stupid because basically they're here to cause trouble. They can't stop themselves. I didn't recognize it either until he did that. But you can't. They're here to cause trouble, so they can't keep writing sane comments. I don't think the media stopped talking about Ukraine. I think it's in the news a lot here still, really. I think it is. Julius, thank you for your very generous question. I'm here late because I just got off of work. That's okay. Just curious. Did you hear from Newsweek that the Russians ordered 230,000 death certificates for the military? Does that reveal the actual casualty counts? That is part of what I talked about yesterday. Actually, I didn't mention the death certificates, but part of that analysis I was saying yesterday, that's cute, Audrey. Part of the analysis I was saying yesterday was from somebody that a lot of the generals follow, who was saying that he calculates that there's 300,000 Russian deaths already. And he was basing it in part, I believe, on the death certificates and all that kind of stuff. So sorry, like I said, I burned my lips on pizza, and I've never, this is the most unhappy thing I've done in a very long time. It's very annoying. Anyway, what do you do? It's okay. Anyway, yes. I think that is from the report I was talking about yesterday. Yeah. Now, does it mean the number of casualties? Not necessarily. It's still a little weird if the Russians are ordering 230,000 death certificates. I mean, you know, you don't order 230,000 death certificates when you're winning a war, you know? I mean, you know, a little weird. I don't think so. Tonka is raising a question that a lot of people have raised. I don't think it's the case, though. Could Biden be dragging out the war to sell more U.S. military systems to other countries? I don't think so. First of all, the U.S. systems are going to Ukraine. They're not going to other countries, right? Second of all, what was I going to say? The U.S. systems are going to Ukraine. We can sell systems anyway. I mean, I don't see. I think the best way to sell U.S. military systems, if that were your goal, is to win the war, right? I mean, that's the best way. You win the war and everyone goes, Russia lost to American and NATO weapons. Russian weapons suck. Don't buy it from them. NATO weapons rock. Buy those weapons, right? So that's the best way to win the war. Also, I will say this. Biden is pissing me off in how he's handling the war, but I think he's genuine. Biden actually believes that Putin losing is going to cause a disaster, right? He does believe that. Biden is not the kind of person who is going to say, let's get the Ukrainians killed for a while. Let's let Putin kill a lot of Ukrainian civilians, even though we could stop it, because that'll sell more American weapons. There's zero chance that Joe Biden would do that. I don't see that in who he is. Thank you, Legend. So like I said, I'm very critical of him because I think he's screwing up, but I think he's screwing up for altruistic reasons because he does think he's doing the right thing, but it's not for bad reasons. No. Over 10 countries have placed orders for Patriot systems. Oh, I'm sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. Like, I think, the fact that they're effective is enough of a sales job. You could also argue, if Ukraine doesn't win the war, it's a disincentive to sell to some degree because people go, even the American weapons can't save you, Anyway. What else? What other possible scenarios for the end of the war do you see? I don't see a lot of them. I mean, A, Ukraine loses. B, Ukraine kicks Russia out entirely or mostly, right? I mean, that's possible. C, I don't know that there's anything else in between. I don't think there is anything else in between. Russia and Ukraine get tired? No. Right? I think that's my concern with this. I think you have to help Ukraine win this war because I don't see an alternative. I don't think so. So, all right, guys, maybe one or two more, and then we can call it quits. We're already an hour and a half into this. I was going to do Discord, but I'm not going to do Discord now because we've been doing an hour and a half. But do check out Discord. Like I said, I've got a lot of the auction items up. Very cool. Sam is saying, have you heard of people calling Poland the Texas of Europe? No. No. What do they mean? I'm not sure what they mean by that, though. I haven't, though. No. Oh, they've ordered F-35s, HIMARS, Patriots, and requested nukes. Has Texas done that, too? I don't know. See you, Dark Irish. Oh, you got to wait. Come on. Give me a minute. The dog wants water. This is the time. Remember, 7:30 is the time when I normally brush her teeth. So when we're still doing the show, she gets annoyed. Would you support a non-MAGA Republican that supported Ukraine? If you mean for president, I would probably disagree with them on too many issues. So that I probably would not, because there'd just be too many other issues I wouldn't agree with them on. But I would praise them I would praise them for their Ukraine stance. Nikki Haley's been great on Ukraine. Mike Pence, of all people, has been great on Ukraine. Mike Pompeo. So, I would praise them and give them credit where credit's due. But I would disagree with them on too many things, though, personally. So, anyway. All right, guys. I think, let me look. I think I'm going to do it. It is getting dark. I know it's funny how the sun is now setting at 7:00. It's so scary. Wow. Very weird. All right, guys, I'm going to do a quick summary of the news and then say goodnight and brush my dog's teeth. So hang on a second here. All right, here are the stories. We covered a lot tonight, actually. Yeah, Dobra Nich. Today's day 575 of Putin's special 3-day military operation. Saturday morning is our coffee talk, remember? Our coffee talk we do for the monthly subscribers on TikTok, YouTube, Discord, Twitch, and Ko-fi. All of you join us. TikTok, join us on TikTok at 11 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday. All the rest of you can join us on YouTube, on Discord. Excuse me. Go over to Discord. Yes, Edward says Will Hurd is a decent rep. Yes, he retired, I believe. Right? Did he was running for president. I think he already dropped out. But he seems like a decent guy. Yes. Okay. So anyway, Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time, US. If you're a paid subscriber or a moderator, all the mods are invited as well. Join us. Russia launched a huge attack. Thank you, Indrid. Russia launched a huge attack on at least 6 cities today, including Ukrainian electrical infrastructure. They've started that whole thing again, which is bad. In response, possibly Ukraine took out the power in a Russian town. There was an explosion and 5,000 homes were left without power. Could have been coincidence, could have been Ukraine. We don't know. Ukraine says its forces struck a Russian airbase in Crimea overnight. Zelensky was at the Pentagon today. He also met with Biden and U.S. members of Congress. CNN says National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan to Biden says Biden will not be giving ATACMS to Ukraine anytime soon. I then read a Washington Post editorial that was quite critical of Biden for, quote, dawdling over providing weapons to Ukraine. And they also were critical of Biden, which I have too, saying that he is not doing a good enough job explaining to the American people, that he isn't explaining at all to the American people why this war matters, and he needs to. There was also good news from the counteroffensive. Ukrainian heavy equipment has broken through the Russian lines near Verbove. This includes Stryker and Marder infantry fighting vehicles. Institute for Study of War says this is a significant breakthrough for Ukraine, as does Callum. The Polish Foreign Ministry distanced itself, which was good, from the Prime Minister's statement today. The Polish Prime Minister said Poland was going to stop giving weapons to Ukraine. The Foreign Ministry said, what are you talking about? Now, Cliff, did you have a super chat, or are you just saying you had a question? Because remember, I can't get to every question. Lots of questions I didn't get to. Oh, you did have a super chat. Didn't see it. Cliff is right. He had a super chat. Sorry about that. Ask your military techs, can Ukraine modify artillery to go as far as ATACMS? Okay. Artillery, folks, can Ukraine modify the artillery they've been given, or the artillery they've got, to go as far as ATACMS? Callum says no. Super Hornet says no. Okay. Mind you, ATACMS goes almost 200 miles, 300 kilometers. Indrid says no. So you've now got the British military, American intelligence, and Super Hornet. It's charge bag dependent. Okay. They would need to increase the propellant. Yep. And the, is it with artillery that we gave them? What's it that we gave them that's got the propellers and the guidance system that gets attached to the bombs? It's not the gravity bombs. What is it? They're not Glickums. What are they? That Glickums are ground launch cruise missiles. JDAMs. There, I was thinking Glickum. JDAMs. We did give them the JDAMs. Aren't the JDAMs used for artillery or not? Pressure per square inch on the tube, so that would be a problem with the amount of charge you've got in there. But yeah, are JDAMs used for? Oh, JDAMs are for planes on bombs. Okay. So yeah, so they wouldn't be for on planes. Okay, so they wouldn't be for stuff that you use for artillery, not artillery tech. Okay. Yep. Okay. So no. So the answer is no. There you go. Okay. Sorry, Cliff. I did not see that. I should have gone into my starred. Nope, I didn't see it in my starred section. I don't know why. That's weird. Yeah, sorry. I have like a special section that brings up the super chats, and it didn't show it today. And by the way, thank you. You put the question in the super chat to make it easy, and I still missed it. So I apologize for that. Sorry. Yeah, JDAMs are for air launch bombs. Okay. Thank you, Shane. Glad you think so. All right, let me give a little bit more here. The first shipment of Ukrainian grain with their new plan to skirt the coast of NATO has now arrived at the Bosporus. So it will be cutting through Turkey and getting safely into the Greek area, Greek and Turkish, sea there, the Aegean. Ukraine has received 10 Swedish variants of Leopard 2 tanks. Another German aid package was announced today, second this week, by the way. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense reports that a Pepsi factory in Kyiv has been destroyed by Russian airstrikes, which is ironic because Pepsi has refused to pull out of Russia, and now their taxes are helping pay Russian bombs that are destroying Pepsi factories. And finally, I went through a long talk from Sky News, this is Michael Clark, about how the weather would affect the rain first and then the cold, and how it affects tanks and infantry and all sorts of different things. That was very interesting. All right, guys, that is it. This was a long one tonight. Thank you. Appreciate you coming. Appreciate the gifts on TikTok and YouTube, as always. Appreciate the mods holding back the crazies. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, but definitely check out that. Thank you, Sean. Last minute, cool. A very nice last minute gift, especially. But do go and check out the Discord. As I said, I've got a lot of cool stuff up there. Actually, cool Ukrainian bracelet as well that Vlad got, which I think they're really pretty because it's a very nice, it's a very pretty woven bracelet. Like it's one of those cool, but I think just the weave is very pretty on this. So got that. What else did I have? I think it's one of the fridge magnets. I do like one of the Russian warship go F yourself fridge magnets. And finally, there's two things. A Ukrainian necklace, a Ukrainian trident necklace. Hold on. There you go. You can see. Very pretty, silver looking at least, from Elizabeth, who got them in Ukraine. And then there's also a Russian military hat, one of the fur Russian military hats that's very cool from Ukraine. So, all right. Okay. Now, the mods don't hold back dissent. The mods hold back the crazies because we get too many crazies and angry people. And basically, anybody who wants to come and politely discuss, like Indrid, for example, disagreed with me about the analysis on Biden, and we went back and forth, and we both kind of came to agree with each other politely because that's okay. But when people come and they're just here to be mean, usually we can smell it. And I can taste it when somebody's trying to be mean, like that guy. The guy who was asking a question, and then his second question was when are you going over to fight? That means you're a jerk, right? That's somebody just here to be a jerk. So we bump the people who are jerks. Typically we don't bump people who just disagree about Biden. No. If someone's being a jerk, I guarantee you, Ken, if someone's being a jerk about it, that's why they get booted. Now, occasionally we make a mistake. Who was it, Pete or Dave? Who was the guy yesterday? We booted somebody by accident yesterday, and we brought him back. Because sometimes, you just can't always do it. Exactly. Like Callum just said the same thing. Sometimes we do it on accident. That's true. Sometimes we do it by accident, but most of the time you think it's people disagreeing and it's people being jerks, and it's a totally different thing. So, all right, guys, let's talk tomorrow, 6:00 Eastern time. Well, you can get bumped for making a joke because they don't know it's a joke. That's happened. That is some people have made jokes that we didn't know they're jokes. That definitely has happened. Yeah. But you know what, guys? We get so many of the Russian trolls that it's very hard to do. I mean, I've been moderating online communities since 1995. It's very difficult. It's very difficult, especially when you're dealing with like so many jerks like we have to deal with, because we get so many of the Russians, and clearly the Russians have basically sicked on us just to cause trouble. And you got so many of them coming in that it's very hard to do it and basically not get some okay people, because you see the okay person that said something a little off and you assume they're a bad person too. So it's hard. Oops, let me see what this is. What am I doing for Ukraine? Well, I've raised $100,000. What have you done for Ukraine? As a lawyer, I will tell you an important lesson, and we'll close the night on this. Be very careful what questions you ask people when you don't know the answer. They say a lawyer in court never asks a question he or she doesn't first know the answer to. So you never want to ask me what I've done for Ukraine. That's just really bad because you won't win that fight, big buckaroo. So there you go. And Michael, the best part is I don't have to sign up to fight because the Ukrainians are fighting for me. That's the beauty of it. We are paying Ukraine. We are giving them the weapons to fight our war against Russia. And they're destroying the Russian military, absolutely destroying it. And that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm also too old to sign up anyway. And by the way, I'm not a fighter. I'm a fighter this way. I can't fight oops, hang on, getting rid of somebody. I can't, going to war, I'm not going to be very effective, but doing things online, I'll be very effective. Strategy, messaging, very effective. Oh, thanks, Tomcat, but I just wouldn't be good at it. That's not my physical violence has never been my skill set. Mental violence, I'm really good at. I'm very good at mental violence. Like I said, ask Barack Obama, ask George Bush, actually, ask Barilla Pasta. That was another campaign I did several years ago. I blew up Barilla Pasta because they were anti-gay. And a lot of, at the time, it's 2013, people may not remember now, but it was an international story at the time. And it's because of what I did to Barilla. And they paid a price and they straightened themselves out, which was good. But that I'm good at. But I don't, guns, I wouldn't mind. I mean, I'd use a gun if I had to, but I wouldn't be very good at it. No. All right, guys. Good night. Good night. Good night. Good night. No, money well spent in Ukraine. Last little point, Mr. Troll. The money's very well spent because we are now at day 575, and your friend Vladimir Putin has lost 300,000 soldiers, 300,000 Russians dead in this war. That is not your buddy Putin doing well. All right, guys. Have a good night. See you all tomorrow, 6 o'clock Eastern. Go check out the Discord, discord.aravosis.com.